Our scripture for this morning is 1 Samuel 15, verses 34 to chapter 16, verse 13. And my theme for this morning is, You are called. You are called. Around 1811, Joanna Lee from the African Methodist Episcopal Church felt called to preach the gospel. She went to Richard Allen, AME Church first bishop, whose preaching at Bethel AME Church in Philadelphia converted her years earlier, to tell him about her desire and passion. He told her that he had no objection to women exhorting the congregation after the sermon or holding prayer meeting before informed her that Methodism's rule did not call for women preachers. 8 years later, at the Bethel worship service, when a minister began preaching, but seems to have lost the spirit, Joanna Lee jumped up and began exhorting. Afterward, Richard Allen stood up and explained to the congregation about her request 8 years earlier. He expressed that she was as called to preach as any preacher. After this affirmation, Joanna Lee started preaching in homes. Soon she began her traveling preaching career in Philadelphia, New York, Maryland, and even as far as Ohio. In 1 year, in 1820s, she claimed to have traveled more than 2,000 miles and preached more than 175 sermons. Her dedication of her calling is seen through her long-distance itinerant preaching, which she often traveled by foot while leaving her children with Bishop Allen and his family. In her religious experience in Germany, she describes her challenges as an African-American woman preacher who encounter opposition to her preaching as a woman. But her confidence that God was with her was enough to carry her in the most difficult times. Like Joanna Lee, you have ever been undermined by those around you because of your gender, because of your identity, because of your status or your country, credentials or degrees, that you do not have what it takes to do or what to be a preacher. God has chosen you not to base on your identity or credential or your status, but for the merit of who you are and because of the gifts that have been bestowed upon you. You are called and you are anointed for the task of proclaiming the good news because God has chosen you. We will look at the story of David's anointing as king to see how God chooses those who are less qualified for the task. In today's scripture, from 1 Samuel 15, verses 34 to chapter 16, verse 13, we learn that God rejected King Saul from being king over Israel and has instruction for Samuel to fill his horn with oil and to Bethlehem and anoint one of Jesse's sons to be the new king. Can you imagine Samuel's states of emotion at God's request? If your king is still alive and you are anointing another one, another new king, that is considered treason, and you can lose your head for that. As expected, Samuel is gripped with fear and asks God, how can I go? If Samuel hears of it, he will kill me. God then instructed Samuel to take a heifer, with him and tell people that he has come to sacrifice to the Lord, and invite Jesse to the sacrifice. Then Samuel is to anoint the one that God chooses. Samuel did what God has instructed him to do. He went to Bethlehem and invited the elders to sanctify themselves and come to the sacrifice. Jesse had all but his youngest son, who was tending the sheep, present at the sacrifice. As Eliab passed by, Samuel noticed his appearance and his height and thought that he was the one, but God said, "Do not look on his appearance or on the height of his statures, because I have rejected him. For the Lord do not see as mortals see. They look on the outward appearance, but the Lord looks on the heart." The other 7 sons of Jesse also passed by Samuel, but God did not choose any of them. Samuel is likely using some device like the Urim and Thummim to decide whether each of these sons is the chosen one. Then Samuel asked Jesse if all his sons are here. Jesse replied that the youngest is keeping the sheep. Then Samuel asked to have him brought in, while they all wait and will not sit until he comes. When the boy arrives, the Lord said, "Rise and anoint him, for this is the one." Samuel anointed him in the presence of his brothers, and the Spirit of the Lord came upon David from that day forward. Modern scholars believe that the book of Samuel is part of the Deuteronomist history and consists of the books from Deuteronomy to Kings. It also should not be understood as all factual, but as work of literary art that may contain theologically and politically agenda for the purpose of this writer and redactors. In this story, the biblical motif of the younger as preferred to the elder is prominent, and that it is about suitability and not seniority. Another overarching tone of the book of Samuel and even the Deuteronomic history is the pro-Davidic tone in which David is presented as the ideal king. It almost seems to be remorseful that defend the rise to the throne of King David, who has no genetic right to the throne, but is addressed here in 1 Samuel 16 as one who is elected by divine will. What these tell us is that there may have been hidden agenda in the literary form of the narrative, and that the presentation and portrayal of the stories and their character may subject to the writer's proposition and motives. With that understanding, we approach a story seeing the point of view of someone who is portrayed as less than qualified, such as David, who is portrayed as less qualified, such as David, who is the youngest, and the 8 sons of Jesse instead of the 7th, like in 1 Chronicles 2, verses 13 to 15. The number 8 is the one outside of the complete number. Therefore, is an outsider. Well, the depiction of David is the youngest son who show that he is unimpressive, without credential and claim. As the 7th son, David would have been seen specifically blessed. His depiction as the 8th son may highlight his humble origins. Yet, the narrative shows that God has chosen David, the less than qualified, less than impressive outsider, to be elected as the new king of Israel. On our to proclaim and preach the good news, we are all challenged by many obstacles and hindrances from people who undermine us, like during the league. Some seminarians are undermined because they are women or because of their race and gender. The pulpit in many areas in the United States are still reserved for white males and not female or people of color. Like David, we are not invited to the scene and are considered less than qualified. In verse 11, when Samuel said to Jesse, "Are all your sons here?" Jesse said, "There remain yet the youngest, but he is keeping the sheep." Imagine if you are one of your parents' children, and during Christmas, every one of your siblings receive present, but you are the only one who doesn't receive anything. How would you feel? Imagine you were David. How would you feel to be left out of the event while having to take care of the sheep? The narrative portrayed David as the one who is unimportant to those around him, who is neglected by his father and others, but is ultimately exalted by God. This is important, especially for those of us who are viewed as unqualified in the eyes of others, or even in our own eyes. People may reject us based on what they see or appears on the outside. They only see what is skin deep, but not what is inside of our hearts. However, like David, we are chosen by God. We are called and anointed by the Lord, who sees not the outward appearance, but our hearts. Anointing is a means for consecrating persons or things by anointing with oil. By being consecrated, people and objects are dedicated for the service of God. Just as the anointing oil does its works in filling David with the Spirit of the Lord, so our anointing is filling us with the Spirit of the Lord that qualifies us for the task of proclaiming, preaching the good news. In verse 13, no one is saying anything. Not David, not Samuel, not the brothers. Every voice is silent. And the only important thing is the anointing work of the oil that speaks volume about his election and calling. In a similar way, our anointing identified us as the one who is giving the identity as God's chosen, just as it has for David as God anointed. David is depicted as a shepherd who tends the sheep in verse 11. In the ancient Near East tradition, kings were normally depicted as shepherds for their people. With regards to our duty as God's anointed, we have the task of shepherding the people of God. The book of Samuel is showing that David is not next inheriting the throne, but God had chosen him to rule. Even though he appears weak, even though he appears small in the eyes of others, he has no credential, no social status. God picked him. Similarly, we need to remember that it is God who called us and anointed us for the task of proclaiming and preaching the good news to the world and not other people. As we continue to pursue our path and journey of faith, let us not see ourselves in the eyes of others, but in anointing of the Spirit that God has graciously given to us. Together with the answer of prophet Isaiah, he answered God on his calling, "When I heard the voice, the Lord saying, 'Whom shall I send?' And who will go for us? And I said, here I am. Send me. You are called.